Have you found yourself navigating a dark night of the soul? Are you craving a deeper connection with the divine feminine? Are you ready to integrate the balanced union of the masculine and feminine within? Then let's get started on the journey towards wholeness to reclaim your sovereign soul. My name is Cynthia Clarke. Over the past several decades, I have undergone many dark nights of the soul. My healing journey has been a reclamation of my sovereign divinity. Whether you're just starting out on your self-healing journey or have been exploring techniques for many years, Discover Divinity offers an opportunity to uncover the new possibilities for discovering and reclaiming the innate wisdom within. It is time to discover the new possibilities. It is time to discover you. In this episode, Remembering the Goddess, discovering and reclaiming the ancient wisdom of the divine feminine, my guest Warren and I dive into the sacred history of the divine feminine, exploring goddess worship from ancient times to modern day spiritual movements. From fertility goddesses to dark goddesses, we'll uncover how the divine feminine has been revered across cultures, how it shaped our world, and how you can reconnect with this transformative energy. We'll also discuss the importance of balancing both the masculine and feminine energies within yourself for true empowerment and healing. So let's get started. Welcome to today's Discover Divinity, Reclaim Your Sovereign Soul. In this episode, we explore the rich and profound history of goddess worship, beginning from the Paleolithic Venus figurines to modern spiritual movements celebrating the divine feminine. We will look at how the divine feminine has been revered throughout different cultures and civilization, and how its suppression over time has impacted both individuals and societies. We will also discuss how reconnecting with these energies, along with balancing both the divine masculine and feminine within ourselves, can bring healing and empower us to live our true, authentic selves. So get ready to tap into your inner goddess and reclaim the sacred feminine energy that has always been within you. I am so excited to invite my guest today. Warren Odell Merrill began his journey growing up on a family farm in Annis, Idaho, driving tractors and devouring every sci-fi book he could get his hands on. While playing his baritone during high school band, one day he noticed a pretty girl named Paula Jo playing her trumpet just a few feet away. In retrospect, it was an inspired decision to ask her out to the next dance, as it resulted in 3 years of dating, followed by 45 years and counting of marriage, 4 children and 4 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild, with a second one due later this summer. After 35 years as a software engineer for Idaho National Laboratory, he retired last year and now spends his days reading, researching ancestors, playing with his oh so cute granddaughter, and just generally anything that he chooses to do. His spiritual path has led him to become a Reiki master, teacher, and a Karuna Reiki master teacher. Along with the way of the divine feminine, known more personally to him as the goddess, she has shown him that she was his divine connection. Now he is the owner of the Facebook and Instagram accounts named Priest of the Goddess, where he posts history of the divine feminine and goddesses throughout history, as well as highlighting the empowered women in history who have claimed their own divine feminine power. His desire is to teach others more about the divine feminine, as well as igniting their desire to seek out their own relationship. So I am more than excited to welcome Warren here today. We are going to have such a great treat in today's show. So, welcome, Warren.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm happy to be here too. This is
Yes.
this is a passionate subject, so we should probably have a very good discussion today.
Yes, and it's been wonderful as we've come across each other's path to recognize this mutual passion and desire that we truly do have to step into this sacred integration of the divine feminine energy. And when we met, we were just in total synergy about
Mhm.
talking and sharing and bringing this message really as far as it can reach. And so I just am more than happy that we've come together today, really sharing the gift of the divine feminine. And so thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's begin maybe with walking our audience through the sacred history of goddess worship and then transitioning through that declination and then the resurgence into current time. So if you want to go ahead and get started, that would be great.
Okay, I'm going to put on my teacher hat because that's something that I love doing too.
Wonderful.
So, I believe a lot of people, I have run into so many people who have no clue that actually goddess worship and divine feminine worship came first before male gods, before the worship of any sort of male gods. It dates back so far that it goes back into the first evidence that we have of it is the Paleolithic era, which is approximately 28,000 to 25,000 BC. We're talking almost 30,000 years ago. They have found during archaeological digs evidence of goddess worship. And those come out as um, little figurines that are goddesses. They're females. They're clearly females. They have very exaggerated features, very ponderous breasts, very large stomachs, very wide hips, clearly female. And even though that is prehistory, that is before we have written records, those little statues, they found them, if they went into caves, they found little grottos that had been made, and the little statues were standing in those grottos. In
Wow.
burials, these little statues are found buried with the people. So they know they're not just one day I was bored and so I decided to carve a female figure. These were important. These are actually probably worshipped as the divine feminine, the creator, the mother god, they knew that females create. They create life. And so it was attributed that the earth was created by a female divine. So then we moved to the Neolithic period, which is about 10,000 to 4,500 BC. And rather than these little random statues that they found, and they found in multiple places, now they find that there seems to be a more structured goddess worship. And they can actually see that in the civilizations where there were even more devoted goddess worship altars, places like that that they've dug up. The first written records that we find of it are from around the Egyptian mythology. So the Egyptians honored the goddess Isis. This was a huge main goddess of theirs. This is about 4,000 BC. So now we're talking 6,000 years in our past. The Egyptians, and we have it written, so there's no question that they honored the goddess Isis. Then we move to ancient Mesopotamia, which is at about 3000 BC. And what we find there is that they worshiped a goddess Inanna. We actually have their written records. We know what they called her. And so this was their mother goddess, their creator goddess. So now we're talking, this is 3000 BC. We were almost 30,000 BC. We have 27,000 years of civilization and peoples obviously honoring the feminine and as a creator, the divine feminine. So she's been around for a long, long time. After that, we moved into slightly after the Mesopotamian people, we moved into the Indus Valley civilization. and that's at around 2500 to 1500 BC. And that's more in the the country of India, that area. And so that was Shakti worship. So there's Shakti and Shiva. You've probably heard that before. Shiva is the
Yes.
male, that's the male divine masculine, and Shakti is the feminine divine. And so, during that time, that was there. So we see it's a lot of different places all over that area where the early peoples were. Then we move to around 800 BC. Now, some of us, when we went to school, and I went a long time ago, so I'm speaking, hoping they still teach this them, but we learned Roman and Greek goddesses and gods. And we may have thought at the time, I know I thought when I was in school, this is some of the oldest, this is amazing. They had all these gods, goddesses. Well, this was around 800 BC that this was happening. This way after all this other worship had happened. And yet we never learn about the older. We kind of start there. And most people kind of think that equates to maybe biblical times and stuff. It's in there somehow. And it is, but do you know the oldest relics, the oldest records that they know for the Bible occurred about 1000 BC or 1100 BC. So just before the Greek and Roman stuff. So the Greek and Roman was happening about the same time as the Bible. And the Hebrews were worshiping, they came to worship the single male God. So Greeks and Romans had male gods too, but now the single male God concept actually only came 3,000 years ago.
Wow.
And 27,000 years after the first people were honoring the female God, the goddess, and the feminine divine. So she has been around for much longer than this concept of the male. Once the male concept of a male god, and especially a single male god, came in, then that decreased the worship of the divine feminine and the goddesses. They were relegated to, during the Middle Ages, a divine feminine person would have been like the saints that are honored, and Mother Mary, and that was the role of the divine feminine all through the Middle Ages. They were no longer these main creators of us, and they were in these quieter roles, you might say. And that has lasted for a couple of thousand years. The feminine was really suppressed to that role. Then, what we've seen is that in more modern days, sorry, I'm just trying to, there's so many steps to history here, gather myself here. So it declined as the monotheistic, the single male God religions flourished. And that's where we got into more patriarchal societies. And the feminine was, it's nice, we like you, you're here. But the real power was with the males and our male God. And the patriarchy has just kept them suppressed for so long. Then we've seen that in the modern era, we've seen a resurgence of females realizing that they're powerful and desiring more of a connection, wanting more. I have talked to so many people, so many women who have said, I grew up thinking I had to relate to this male divine figure. And it's okay, but I really want a mother. I really want that feminine influence. And especially because the patriarchal religions, the male figure is often seen as very, very judgmental, very almost mean, almost like I'm waiting to get you if you mess up.
Right.
And the women have needed something more nurturing. They're supposed to have this natural nurturing nature, but they have a struggle relating to their creator because their creator is not like them in many ways.
Absolutely.
And so we've seen in the last several decades this resurgence of women waking up and saying, I really want to connect to a divine feminine. And so that's where we've arrived at today is, is this desire, this wanting to wake up, wanting to have this influence in their lives and saying, I, I just can't quite relate as well to this. Is it out there? Can I find it? Can I relate to it if it's there? And that's what I found over the last few years myself. The women I connect to, most of them have the strong desire. They just don't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're hoping here today too, is to help people understand that it is out there. I mean, I can't make you believe it. I can only tell you what I've experienced
Mm-hmm.
and allow you to give yourself permission to start searching to see if you can find some of the same things that I know Cynthia and I have found. And
Absolutely.
and find something for yourself. What is real for yourself? What is
Mm-hmm.
true for yourself? What is the big T truth?
Mm-hmm.
And you can only find that by really finding it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you are relying upon somebody else telling you, you're getting their version of it. You're getting maybe their expectations of what they want you to do, to be, to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And is that really where you want to be? Let's explore for ourselves and find out what's true for us.
Oh, that's great advice and a beautiful invitation. And I loved how you briefly pointed on these different ages through time where we gradually did lose that connection. And you pointed something out when you were talking about, the Greek, the Roman Empire, kind of that time period when things started to go more into that declination of the divine feminine, more of like the male god figure. And so many people, their relationship with this male god that's been with us for thousands and thousands of years through different religions, you talked about how it is very judgmental, right? Like this is where we
Mhm.
look back in that time period that the fear, the manipulation, the shame, all of those parts were used in order to control. That's the way that the Roman Empire and that time
Mhm.
period took over, was to use this tactic of the
Mhm.
judgment, the fear, the manipulation. And what's happened is we have so many individuals who now carry these wounds with God, and a fear of God that is almost like an illusion of what the divine masculine truly is. And so as I've worked with clients and I've seen these different parts of the roots genetically that go throughout ages of time, we really are in a space of having to come into healing that relationship with the divine masculine as well, because it has
Mhm.
been so skewed. It has been filled with illusions, lies, that has not only disconnected us from the divine feminine, it's also disconnected us from the sacred divine masculine. And
Mhm.
so I love how you're inviting the audience, to really take a look at that concept of perhaps not necessarily looking outside the self,
Mhm.
coming into the invitation to now coming back within. And
Mhm.
and when we really allow for ourselves to sit with ourselves, we are able to be in that reflective still space. And as you were saying, the two of us, we've had so many beautiful experiences with the divine feminine, but that is something, and we're going to talk more about how to really tune into that divine feminine energy as we move along in our podcast. But that is one thing, as you bring this up, that I felt it would be nice to start to share with the audience, is to really come into that space of stillness and reflection, because
Mhm.
that's when I feel like the divine feminine speaks. And it's when you really can come into that healing balm of what it is she or that sacred divine feminine offers, to allow you to then, instead of going outside of yourself, to listen in your heart. Listen in that soul centered part of yourself for the answer so that you can find your truth, right? That capital T truth.
Mm-hmm.
But what is your truth?
Exactly.
And everyone else's truth may be different, right?
Exactly.
And there may be people that, they don't vibe with the divine feminine or the divine masculine concept, and that's okay, because that's their journey. and
Mhm.
and it is really beautiful. Now we kind of get to move into the resurgence, this rising energy of leaning in and being still with the divine feminine. And this is really what I have felt as I have done this work and I've really leaned into this pure love energy, is I feel like the divine feminine is such a catalyst for allowing us to heal those wounds that have impacted us through the toxic aspects of patriarchy and manipulation, control, fear. Like that energy is such a healer to now reintroduce us into the sacred relationship with the divine masculine
Mhm.
in its truest form. And
Mhm.
so we're being given quite a beautiful gift at this time. So thank you for bringing that up and sharing your insight. Is there anything you wanted to share here before I bridge into our next part of the podcast?
Well, you said something a second ago, and let me ponder on that still, just how I
Yeah.
would respond to that. But you said something, and I'm actually going to show you. Now, I brought in a few examples of the divine feminine that helps me to focus on the divine feminine and think of it. And these came from my meditation room, and I'm not actually in my meditation room right now. It's back in another part of my home, but I brought those in to kind of set. But you said something, there's one of those related to this. So if you can see this, this is
Mm-hmm.
known as the spiral goddess.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the forms is the god of the goddess is this spiral that starts in her where her navel basically would be, and then
Mm-hmm.
it spirals outward. And it represents two things, that sometimes we're in growth periods when we do expand outward and grow, but you also talked about going inward. And the
Mm-hmm.
spiral goddess gives us an invitation to start out here. And sometimes we go inward in the
Beautiful.
spiral. And that is when we learn, when we discover more about ourselves. And guess what automatically happens after you go inward and you spend that time truly working on yourself?
Mm-hmm.
You go back into a growth period. You grow.
Beautiful.
So this is just a really interesting representation of the goddess. It
Yes.
has that duality. We
Oh,
need both.
and for those of you that are listening just through the audio of the podcast formats, Warren and I are also doing a YouTube video. And so those who are watching the video can see these beautiful statues that he has of the divine feminine. And this statue is quite beautiful. He's got some artwork of the divine feminine as well. And so if you have a way to get to the YouTube channel, it'd be great to look at these. But Warren and I have a mutual friend, and it was so fun,
Mhm.
who thought of us. She knows how the both of us are just so in synergy, like I said, with this and our passion. And it was just the sweetest thing that she was down in southern Utah, um, going through gem shows and different things like that. And she came back with these beautiful spiral goddesses for both the Warren and I, carved out of these beautiful gems. And it is such a beautiful, beautiful gift. And I love the symbolism that you are sharing, because this is one of the greatest things through the divine feminine that we are being gifted. Because when you think about the impact of the sweeping off of the earth, that divine feminine energy, and only coming into this male god energy, it's almost as if half of that was cut, right? It was
Mhm.
just consistently putting your spiral outward to go out, to go out, to go out, to go out. And in that process, what's happened is individuals have lost their innate connection to their own intuition, their spiritual gifts, because they learn that this outside source, from whatever structure or organization, keeps telling you this is the answer you need to get, this is what it's supposed to look like. There's less and less of an inward trust
Mhm.
of what truth is, because it's almost like, it reminds me of almost like a plug, and that energy that goes through a cord. That cord was cut and that energy was cut off. And so now we're being given awareness, we're being given knowledge, and with the great beautiful parts of the internet, there's a lot of negative things about the internet, but with our high, Aquarian age, we have technology, we have information at our fingertips,
Mhm.
with so much information that was hidden from us for thousands of years. It has been hidden. There have been texts, there have been scrolls, there have been different things that were hidden away because of one of those toxic roots that cut off the divine feminine. And so now we have so much more information. They're discovering these, just like you were sharing at the very, very beginning, they're finding artifacts, they're finding texts, they're finding books that connect us to this part of ourselves, and it's just rushing back to the planet. So it's
Mhm.
very exciting, very empowering. So thank you for sharing that example of the spiral goddess, and I feel like that bridges us into the fun part. I'm super excited about this. Like, I really appreciate you sharing the historical aspects, because I'm the same as you. I love knowledge. I can't get my hands on enough books or enough information. My life has just been spent researching and uncovering and finding answers. And so the two of us, we really just value validity of texts and knowledge. And now we get to kind of move into these fun parts of your journey, where, moving out of like a very logical part of your lifestyle, right? Computer
Mhm.
aspects, and like moving into more of that spiritual experience. Like, I would love to hear, first of all, we'll talk about some of the examples that you have from your research, like kind of uncovering this information about the goddess, and how that caused you to then create the Priest of the Goddess page. Because when I see the artwork, when I see the information on these pages, like, it is so enlightening and so powerful to not only learn about the historical parts of that, but also take some of those messages, some of those examples of this energy, and learn to apply it in today's life. And so I would love for you to share a little bit more of that.
Well, and just like I mentioned a while ago about some of what I spoke of through the history stuff is probably new to a lot of people listening to us
Mm-hmm.
today. They're probably going, I never realized that before. I've never heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
Dive in deep and you will have all the learning you can handle. I have found so much interesting stuff. Pretty soon I put up a goddess post and then a female, a real living female usually, each
Mm-hmm.
week, and the stories about them in the picture. And I have learned so much, and pretty soon I'm off doing that. I'm researching, trying to find those. And soon I'm several hours deep into this rabbit hole because
Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
I think right now I probably have enough posts ready to go that I'm probably good through at least Thanksgiving this year. And
Wow.
it's just because it's so interesting. I can't
Yeah.
stop on it. It is so interesting to learn this stuff.
Yes.
So some of the things that I found as I was researching, and these are posts that are already up on my Priest of the Goddess pages. But while I was looking through, I started realizing even what I mentioned earlier, Greek, Roman, we've some of these others, but
Mm-hmm.
the Japanese had their own stories of gods and goddesses, Korean goddesses, Chinese goddesses,
Mm-hmm.
Slavic goddesses, the um, I'm going to be on the spot to come up with the names, but like Czechoslovakia and the countries right around there, that's some of the Slavic and the
Mm-hmm.
Celtic and the Norse. Each one has their own set of stories about gods and goddesses and how the goddesses fit into the picture and most I would say the goddesses create in some way, and so it is just a rabbit hole that I love going down. And I've dug through it. And then I run across things and I start to realize those are all over the world. But what about right here? Why
Mm-hmm.
have I not paid attention right here to some of the stories? So, like, I run across the Naxalt people, and they're of the Pacific Northwest. They're Native American, but they're the Pacific Northwest and up a little bit into Canada in that Pacific Northwest region. And they go back to revere a goddess, Kamates. And goddess Kamates is their creator goddess. It is their protector. It is their provider to the Naxalt nation. And so she is associated with land, water, all that thing. She battled the giants of the mountains and defeated them and caused them to be stilled and placed as the mountain landscapes that we see today. Now, this is right in here. It's not too far from me, from Idaho to where this happened. But what a wonderful story. Why did I not know the history of the Native Americans who were here before us? That's one of the stories. I found it fascinating. Um, and I also found as I've dug, it's not just creator goddesses. The goddesses that I've run into are responsible for all kinds of things, including the dead. There are goddesses that are over the dead. Like, for instance, the Fijian goddess, Nananga, she is the goddess of the dead. She oversees, once you die, she is your overseer and helps you. And the Aztec, and this one, I have to slow down and take this one because it's a big name, Lady Mictlantecuhtli is their goddess of the queen of the underworld, their goddess of the dead, the Aztecs. The Norse, the goddess of the dead for the Norse, is named Hel, Hel, only one L. But appropriately, in the Norse mythology, we've all heard of they go to Valhalla and stuff. Well, only their most valiant warriors and stuff go to Valhalla. The rest go to Hell. And she is the goddess of hell. She is the goddess hell and the goddess of hell and oversees those people. So the goddesses through time have been responsible not only for creating, but overseeing once we finish this life. And I just found that fascinating. I had no idea. I didn't realize there were goddesses over the dead until I found that. And I find it just a shame that even more toward my local area, there's in the Lakota tribe, the Lakota Native Americans, they have white buffalo calf woman. And white buffalo calf woman was a goddess who came and not only helped create them and created nature around them, but she came back and she taught them to use the sacred pipe. Now, if you've watched way too much TV, you're going to call it a peace pipe when you see it, but it is known as a sacred pipe to the tribes and to the Lakota. And that is used, you are praying as you use that pipe. And she taught them how to do that. She taught them how to do a sweat lodge, how to do a vision quest, how to do the sun dance. So she was here helping and teaching. And that's something that I think that when we go to the male God perspective, it's like, yeah, he's up there and kind of watching over us, but not as involved as directly when you study goddesses. You find out they were very involved. They were right. Their stories are that they were right there with them. They're the ones who taught them. It wasn't that the tribe kind of said, well, how about if we do this? Maybe it will help us connect to our goddess. She taught them how. And so that I just found that fascinating. The history of the creator goddesses were a much more involved goddess than well, I'm going to create this. As the male gods were more like, hey, I created this. Now I'm going to sit back and watch. And if you mess up, zap, I'm going to get you. And it's nurturing. Isn't that the exact example of the divine feminine? She's going to come down and nurture and teach and help these people. I thought that was such interesting stories. And I'll tell you one little personal story along with that. In the society we're raised in, we may view that as strange. Why would they smoke a pipe as a prayer? It seems odd. But I'll tell you what, when I was taking I believe it was my Karuna Reiki Master class, as I was finishing some of my spiritual training, one of the ladies in our class was a member of the Lakota tribe. And for the final day of the class, she was the keeper of the sacred pipe. And she said, I want to share this with all of you. She brought a Lakota sacred pipe and lit it. It forms tobacco and herbs and all kinds of things in it. And she taught us that same thing. This is a prayer. This isn't just some silly thing you're doing. You are praying to your ancestors. The smoke rising is you're sending your prayers to your ancestors. And she passed that around. And at that time, I was almost silly enough to say, oh no, I'm not going to smoke this little pipe this one time. Fortunately, that day, I tuned in more to my authentic self and I said, of course I'm going to participate. And that is a beautiful, beautiful memory that to this day, I am so glad I said yes to myself and I participated in that. And I'm telling you, it is an amazing spiritual thing. And you do feel so connected to your ancestors in that moment. So that story catches me also, that she taught them how to use the pipe, because then I go, that's personal to me. I remember that. And I have done that.
Yeah. I
And
appreciate that, Warren. And if you don't mind for just a moment, like
Mhm.
I feel like you sharing these different parts, right? From different people's traditions and different cultures. Like we've talked about so many different cultures all over the entire world that have revered the goddess or had connection to the feminine energy. And I think it really is good for individuals as a whole to become more open minded and respectful of cultures
Mhm.
that exist across the entire planet, because many times we are raised in systems that put us into a very tight box of this is the only way that we connect to the divine. This is the only way that you connect to God. And sometimes I believe that that can be a disservice for us to not be able to see the beautiful way that cultures all over the
Mhm.
planet are using a communication to the divine, whatever that looks like for them. And it really helps us kind of let go of some of our own personal judgments that really we were trained in, we were influenced by because of the systems we were raised in. But it helps us let go of that judgment and just really live in a space of awe and
Mhm.
reverence and respect of learning about the whole planet, this entire uh, culture of being human. And that's going to look
Mhm.
different for every single person.
Absolutely. Yes. I was caught up in that box for years, all the early part of my life. And the weird thing is, I know I have some gifts, and I experienced them actually very early on in my life. And then I think I let the box take them away from me because they were a
Mm-hmm.
little like, I'm not sure if you're in the box that should be something that you experience. And
Mm-hmm.
so they went away for a lot of my life. And then I, I started attending the classes to learn how to do Reiki. And I was around the very spiritual and very intuitive women, and they helped open the box for me. and helped me realize, yeah, I need to be more open to what is the authentic experience for me. And so um, the in the class, they introduced me. That's where I first heard about the goddess, the divine feminine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in this class and they're all talking like this is the most natural thing. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. We've connected with her. And I'm going, just a minute here. I have spent my whole life knowing, and I just had this deep knowing I could connect to the divine and it was real and I could experience amazing things that maybe I don't even tell other people because they'd be so amazing. I knew it was possible, but I
Mm-hmm.
had struggled my whole life and not had the experiences because the box told me it had to be male and I had to do it a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the connection for me.
Yeah.
And so I started listening to the ladies that I was in the class with, and I started realizing what I've been doing hasn't been working. Maybe they're right. Maybe there's something different for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started being the teachable child. And we can even go back to we've referenced the Bible. You know, Jesus said, "Be a child,"
Mm-hmm.
and he was right. That's where you learn. You know, go back to trusting like a child would. Show me what's real,
Mm-hmm.
what's right, what's for me, not what Cynthia tells me I have to do
Mm-hmm.
and is the right connection for me, what's right for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started being open to that. And I started noticing that, hmm, this feels better. This feels more like I'm going to find what's authentic. And I started having a few dreams in which Goddess would come to me and, you know, talk to me or and I'd wake up in the morning and I knew, and I had always been a person who has dreams that I know they're special. I know that dreams aren't just silly. They're not just um, stuff to dismiss. Oh, that was such an odd thing. They have symbolism in them. They're deeply meaningful. And ancient peoples were so in touch with their dreams. And so I started seeing this showing up in my life. And then one day, I actually, I'm a nervous flyer, especially if I haven't flown for a while. I was about 8 years, 9 years out since the last time I'd flown. I had to go fly. I got on a plane. We're taxiing out to the runway. And I realize for some of you, it's the most exciting thing you've ever done. And so you'll love it. For me, I'm nervous. I'm going, can I do this? That particular day, because it had been so long since I've flown, I got so nervous. I, no exaggeration, my hands started shaking and I started feeling like, I don't know if I can do this. And I got super authentic. I said, you know what? In my head, I said, I don't know if I can do this. And I was literally, I knew I was trying to speak to the divine about that. And you know what? Uh, one of my gifts is I know I'm clairaudient, so I can hear things occasionally. And most of the time it shows up as I hear certain music playing when other people are doing something, and I'll point it out to them. You know, this music fits what you're doing, or this music has a message for you, or whatever. That's how it shows up normally. But this day, I heard the most beautiful female voice that I had never heard before. And, you know, most of us, we have thoughts in our mind, we hear them in our own voice. This was not my voice, and I didn't make it up. And this voice said, do not worry, child. You will arrive safely. And all that fear and anxiety went right to the floor, just melted out of me. And I knew it was her. And that is the most profound first experience with her, even after the dreams and stuff. I knew she was real. And I can't make any of you believe that. You have to find out for yourself. Go have those experiences yourself. Truly be open and asking, what is for me? And I realized that day I'd spent most of my life looking for the wrong connection. I had been looking, I'd been listening to everybody else when my true connection was with the divine feminine. And since that day, I've had this close association with her, and I love to just teach about it and just put it out there. You're looking for it, it's there. Let go of other people's expectations and go find it for yourself. So that was my biggest introduction to it. And it took time, but it came in. And since that time, I always feel comforted if I think of her. If I'm feeling anxious, I think about letting that anxiety go. I think about what it'd be like if I was standing with her and she's the nurturer and she's just saying, let it go. It's okay. You're all right. So that's a more a personal angle on how I got into the goddess. I've had a number of different experiences. You talked about our shared friend. I'll go ahead and tell this
Mhm.
since we're already telling personal experiences. I had a, a couple of years ago, I had some things that I was trying to sort out and figure out for myself and stuff. And I had some of those realizations like that come to me, like, this is my connection. This is I have no worries about when I die. She's going to be there and she'll tell me what's next. Why am I sitting here worried about what's next? I can't change it right now. I just be the best person I can be. I can be kind. I can be patient. I can be care about people. Let the future come what may. It'll take care of itself. And so I was, I felt like I was really growing and really learning. And so this common friend that we have, I was she does services where you can go and well, she's a massage therapist, and so we go for these services. And I was there one day, and as I was prepping, all of a sudden, I just heard the voice again, the second time, and she said, "You are learning who you are, who you have always been, and who you will always be." Just blip in, said that and out. And again, that has brought me so much comfort to realize that this authentic me, and I totally get that some people will see me and see the goddess statues, see the divine feminine picture, and say, you're a little out there, aren't you? Or you're a little odd. But this is me, and she loves me, and this is the path I was designed to be on. And she was just reaffirming that to me. You're just right where you should be.
Mhm.
So those are some of the things, some of the reasons I'm so comfortable with her. Some of the ways she's helped me in my life is with those kind of things. Like I can honestly tell you today, I have no worry about when I'm going to die. I don't know when I'm going to die. I don't know. I'm not worried at all what will happen to me because I know I have been the best person I can be at this point, and she'll take care of me, and the future will take care of itself. And she loves me. And that's one of the biggest things I feel often. I can close my eyes and just sit and say, I can feel you near. And then I start feeling just so much love from her. And that's what a lot of people are searching for.
Mhm.
That's the healing that you're searching for and that you need. Get comfortable with the fact that being authentic and being really who you are and finding your authentic connection will bring you that peace.
Mhm.
So that's some of what I found in
Yes, that's
my experiences with
beautiful.
her.
And I appreciate you sharing your authentic truth
Mhm.
because that's perfect for you. And you living in your authentic truth in this space of being super passionate about the things that you love, I believe that gives other people permission to find their truth. And maybe it's going to look different for each individual of what the divine feminine, the divine masculine looks like. Maybe it's not a actual people, maybe it's a frequency, maybe it's a vibration.
Mhm.
And whatever your journey is, it's perfect for you. And
Mhm.
so I believe that with this divine feminine, however that comes through for any individual, like I was saying before, because our structure for so many thousands of years has been in a fear paradigm. It's been in something that you better follow this or this really bad thing is going to happen to you. It's just a very manipulation based frequency that we've been living in for thousands of years. And so what's happening now is we are kind of like breaking that illusion in a way because of this frequency of the divine feminine. The divine feminine is that outlet to bring us out of fear. And when I go back to scripture, I remember a scripture that gave me so much power and strength, many, many years ago. And it's, "For God hath not given the spirit of fear, but of love and of power and of a sound mind." And that was something decades ago that I just was like, okay, "For God hath not given the spirit of fear, but of love and of power and of a sound mind."
Mm-hmm.
And it would be something that I would repeat over and over and over. And it's kind of like, now looking back on my journey, I'm thinking, wow, it's so interesting to now kind of wake up to the ways that this toxic patriarchal structure has taken fear and shame and
Mm-hmm.
manipulation and twisted that in the relationship with God to make us stay in this box and be afraid, right? Most of people's actions in these paradigms become so based off of fear of what's going to happen to them in the future, that they're not serving or showing up on the planet based off of love.
Yeah.
And so the divine feminine, this frequency of the divine feminine, is kind of resurging to the planet. We're integrating that part to wake us up to go, no, like, God, hath not given the spirit of fear, but of
Mm-hmm.
love and of power and of a sound mind. And so when we invite pure love back into our hearts, and we lean into a life that is, "I am worthy because I exist, I am enough," and you lean into just being love, being more than abounding, full of love, and leave the illusions of fear, of shame, of manipulation to the side, and you learn how to navigate your life in such a way that you live a life based off of love and not fear, you open up these beautiful portals, the beautiful doorways into that dance with the divine masculine energy. And for me, in my journey, it really was as I was opening up my spiritual gifts, I was uncovering more about who I was, leaning into those spiritual gifts as I, in my religion of choice at the time and practicing in the field that I do, I felt like those illusions were peeling away, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And I was coming into a more, I was coming into more of an awareness of who I believed Jesus Christ or the Christ frequency was. And so it was actually the Christ essence and the Christ essence of pure love that started to open me up to having a totally different awareness and awakening. And it was not fear-based. It was not shame-based. It was not based off of manipulation or control. And so that relationship actually was what opened me up into being introduced to the divine feminine. And so when I started to see the Christ essence, or I started to see Jesus through different eyes, I was starting to see that pure love from a masculine perspective. I was starting to see this energy in a way that was, it was so different than the way that I had been raised. And so it really was through that relationship and that growth that then I started having these parts and pieces of the divine feminine come back together. And it was the frequency of both the masculine and the feminine of the Christ frequency, the Christ energy, through that integration process. And I've had so many experiences. Some of them are just far too special to even like share at this point in time, because they are really some of those just really sacred experiences that you just hold in a very special place in your heart. Um, and so I probably won't share a lot of those, but I feel like it was kind of in this space of me peeling back those layers of the fear, the shame, the those energies that I started to uncover of going, wow, this isn't doesn't line up. It just doesn't line up from what I was taught and what I'm feeling, what was
Hmm.
in connection with me. And so it's been completely eye-opening, but also as I work with clients, I've mentioned this before, but the clients that I work with, that's what it is. It's a craving. And it's interesting as I'm looking at your notes. You know, we had written a couple notes that we were going to talk about before we got on today's podcast, and you wrote the same thing.
Hmm.
It's a craving, and that's the only
Hmm.
way I can describe it. But I have men and women. There are so many men that have this part of their innate nature that has been so disregarded throughout time. And so it is quite a privilege when I have men that come into my office or I'm working with them remotely, to begin to see their gifts start to open up when they truly honor that other part of themselves that they've
Hmm.
been craving. Like I said, it's just a craving for, and it is such a healing balm to watch with these individuals when they reintegrate that, when they bring that back to the forefront and they allow themselves to truly reflect and lean in, that's when the healing happens. I call it a healing balm because
Hmm.
that's exactly what it is. And I feel like through that divine masculine energy that is so beautiful in union with the feminine
Hmm.
is where we find that balance. And so, is there anything that you wanted to share about balancing that masculine and feminine energy within ourselves?
Well, absolutely. And we both need it. Now, you talked about the divine masculine. The we can bring in the divine feminine with the masculine helps to bring that balance. For
Mm-hmm.
females, the same thing. You're craving this divine feminine, but don't forget to bring some divine masculine energy into yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Claiming your power. We all see women who give away their power. They don't, they let people run over them. They don't own themselves. They don't speak up for themselves even. Well, that divine masculine part helps you to feel empowered, helps you to speak up for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
helps you to find your voice. And just as for the males, without the divine feminine part, we see the very toxic, the very um, super macho, I'm gonna rule kind of by making you afraid of me and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The divine feminine brings that balance. So we both need it. We both need divine
Mm-hmm.
masculine and feminine. And it's I mean, I think also of my career as a software engineer, my left brain is happy. My left brain is happy to have been able to teach you all these little steps about the history of divine feminine
Mm-hmm.
worship and stuff here today. But my right side, my emotions, my whatever, are happy to be who I am. They're happy that I care about people, and you mentioned something that triggered the thought. When I first met you, I mean, from the first minute, I um, I I I came at you with I really like you, and I can have very much a love for you, and I think you're a great person, and I think whatever, and I didn't know diddly about you,
Mm-hmm.
but that's where I approach people. And then they prove to me if they're if I need to be wary of them,
Mm-hmm.
if I need to pull that back. I approach people from an angle of love. I think you're fantastic. You probably have something to teach me. I love this. Let's go. Let's dance
Mm-hmm.
here. And we'll see if at some point I say, perhaps you don't need to be in my life anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one who's going to prove that to me. I'm going to start from the place of you probably have something to offer me and let's go. And that's that. I love that part of me because if I was too masculine, I would probably tend to be more like, you got to prove yourself to me and then
Mm-hmm.
be with me. And so I love my balance of divine masculine and feminine. It
Mm-hmm.
lets me love people. It lets me
Yes.
care about people. I can hear a story about somebody that maybe I've only met. Maybe they're only a Facebook friend, but I hear a story of something they're going through, and I can cry for them because it hurts so bad that I hate seeing them have to do that. And I've always been that way. And I think that was the message that she gave me about you're finding who you are, who you've always been, and who you will always be. It so many pieces for me fell together once I discovered that. We really are these people who can love, who can have this balance. That we're born probably with this balance,
Mm-hmm.
and it's taught out of us sometimes, or we allow it to flow out of us. And here we are as adults today, and we find these unhealed, these wounded parts of us, realizing that's what we need to go back to. And if we had always been that person that we were probably born as, we would have been just fine today. And we really are just finding who we always were. It's just been masked by these other things. It's been masked by giving our power away. It's
Mm-hmm.
been masked by thinking that we have this fear so much that, boy, we have to intimidate other people so they back down from us and they're afraid of us. This masking has taken away who we really are. Who we
Mm-hmm.
really are is a beautiful balance of divine, masculine, feminine, and really beautiful souls.
Yes, absolutely. And that's as you're speaking of some of those toxic traits, the toxic masculine, the toxic feminine, because there is both. And because we have been in these structures, we do carry those wounded states that we do need to be aware of. And in a previous episode, I dive in pretty deeply on more of those parts of the ego that impact how we show up in the toxic masculine, the toxic feminine, but just the
Mhm.
toxic feminine. But just like Warren mentioned, it is through these structures, through our programs, through generations upon generations upon generations of time that have told us we have to be a certain way that then creates this wounding. And how many individuals I've worked with, when like I was saying, as I work with many men who have the softest, most tender hearts, and then for them to have to go in and do this inner child work where that part of them was completely disregarded. Those parts of their sensitivities were smashed. And we have to go through and really uncover those things to be able to bring them back into opening up that spiritual gift once again. And maybe there's been women who have, because they were maybe known as the bossy type or the ones that had the loud voice and the ones that were kind of like their energy was just too much. Like there's so much of that that then was pressed and shamed and put into
Mhm.
this space that you need to speak quietly. Like your energy is too much, too big. You can't be a powerhouse, right? And so
Mhm.
these parts of ourselves, like Warren was saying earlier, the masculine and the feminine resides in each individual. And so as we are really healing on a collective, we're doing so much healing work right now to mend all of these wounds that have happened from generation upon generation of time. And it's my hope, it's my intention as we as the adults on the planet are really showing up and breaking those chains, breaking those behavior patterns, those toxic frequencies, that now we can start to raise new generations where we really just embrace the movement of each individual, however they're showing up on the planet, whether it's in the masculine or the
Mm-hmm.
feminine, to really just allow a baby that's born to
Mm-hmm.
truly show up into their space of creativity, because we are each born with that innate knowing. And when we can allow that, we can allow that exploration, that creativity, that intuitive part to flourish, we will have less wounding for generations to come.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like leaning in, doing that work as the adults, you know, and then learning how to shift that for the future generations that we're raising is a huge part of that. Is there anything you wanted to share before we go in and we talk about maybe some tips for the audience to
Yeah.
explore finding a connection?
Well, I would just build on that some of the last things you said there, and that is
Mm-hmm.
that um, while this is happening, and I have a few years on you, maybe. I definitely saw this happening, this shift in
Mm-hmm.
the culture and in people over my lifetime to be this balance coming in, more of these individuals who are finding this balance, who are healing things. And as that's happening, we are hearing the culture groan because the culture is a gigantic rock that doesn't want to change very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And those who haven't embraced and haven't healed are going to whine about change. We're not doing it the way we've always done it,
Mm-hmm.
which is a terrible thing. Don't do it the way you've always done it. It broke you. It
Mm-hmm.
made you wounded. So quit doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do it another way.
Yeah.
But the important thing is not to listen to those whines and those groans. We each have to still do our work and change us.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, by our example, others will then go, I'd like to do that too.
Yes.
And we will change things. And don't get discouraged because maybe you're thinking, gosh, we can't change this whole world just in my lifetime. You're probably right. We probably can, but we're making a change. And every little footstep forward is a step forward from where we were.
Mm-hmm.
So keep walking.
Yes, and I think as we kind of come back to our little spiral goddess that we each have, um, it is about going inward. It is using that spiral energy to take ownership for self. And that's the way that when we take ownership for ourselves, we go inward, we are aware, we take accountability for the places that we show up in some not really great ways on the planet, but do it in a way with love and compassion for ourselves and make change, right? Show up, and then when you start to make those internal changes, you come into a space where you do walk through the healing. As you transform, that's when the spiral then shifts, and that's when it goes out into the collective. That's when more individuals are going inward, that's when it ripples. It's like a ripple in a pond. Is
Mhm.
that's when it starts to go outward again into the collective. So really, as much as we want to change the collective, we're still in this,
Mhm.
almost feels like a war of sorts, even though it's not a literal
Mhm.
war. It is this battle between holding on to old structures and introducing the new. And we're going to have that huge chaotic energy going back and forth. And so sometimes that can be very overwhelming when we look at the collective. But that's why it's very, very important that we do come back into that space of finding connection by
Mhm.
going inward. And then it's almost like a natural effect that will go outward, and you can't be responsible for other people, how
Mm-hmm.
they're going to show up on the planet, but you've got to stay in that space of authenticity and your truth, showing up in this new frequency of love versus fear, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the love versus fear. It's like the chaos and the calm.
Yeah,
And we've got to step back into the calm, and the more individuals that show up in the calm, in the peace, in the love, then we ripple outward.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I know my circle, I've watched my circle of people and finding my group. It's often the phrase is used, finding my tribe. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you find those people, it's growing. It is. It is
Mm-hmm.
shifting and we're finding those people. I mean, what did I tell you almost immediately after finding you? Within
Mm-hmm.
just an hour or two of talking to you, I pointedly told you, you are my tribe. I can already
Mm-hmm.
tell that. And we love to find that. We love to find someone else who's
Mm-hmm.
doing the work, who's is bringing their healing in. And I just love who you are. You just fit right in my circle. I'm sitting here today talking to you, and if you added up all the minutes that we've actually known each other and talked, really not a very big pile.
Mm-hmm.
But I am sitting here feeling like I'm just talking to one of my best friends,
Mm-hmm.
like we've always known each other. And
Absolutely.
that's what healing brings you.
Mm-hmm.
And and don't be afraid to let go of some people. Don't be
Yes.
afraid to let go because you know what letting go creates? It creates a void. And as they say, the universe hates a void. It will fill it with
Mm-hmm.
something. And it fills it with delightful people like Cynthia has come in to be my friend circle and I so many others just like her that I've found. My circle of people is so much different than it was years ago. And they all taught me lessons. They were all
Mm-hmm.
the reason they were part of my life. But heal things, heal yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and don't be afraid of that I'm letting go of everything I know because what you don't know is this wonderful people and wonderful experiences and everything are waiting to come into your life if
Mm-hmm.
you'll do the work and heal yourself.
Yes. Oh, that's so powerful. And that's really what it does come down to. And when we do show up and we take accountability, we take ownership, we start to shift a lot of those old wounds. We step out of that chaos, we step out of the fear based energy, and we
Mhm.
step into love, we step into those new frequencies. That's when you naturally, I guess, vibrate, because we are energetic beings, like we're
Mhm.
mostly energy, is you vibrate that energy where you do attract more individuals that are in that same alignment, in that same purpose. And it can be very, very difficult because, at least me living in my authentic truth, being so passionate about, integrating the sacred masculine, the sacred feminine energy, that is a different viewpoint. And so it can be difficult, it can be hard, because those individuals who are not open, or they've been trained, well, we don't even talk about the divine feminine, like we know it's there, but
Mhm.
we're not even allowed to pray to the divine feminine. It can be a really hard thing to be seen as looking odd or different, or out there, or certain perspectives. And because you do love and care for those individuals too, but sometimes that's just a part of you that will continue to be held in that box or that space that's so
Mhm.
restrictive. And part of our journey on the planet is learning, growing, evolving. And when you finally open the top of the box and jump out and you recognize the whole universe, right?
Mhm.
Instead of just being in a set box of the way that you should be, and you really lean into finding out who you are and how you want to show up on the planet, the oxygen is totally different. Like when you finally
Mhm.
breathe into that freedom of being authentic, you can step into those things where you can grow and you can become who it is you probably were when you came to the planet. It's just
Mhm.
coming back. It's coming back
Mhm.
home to yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you wanted to share as far as like allowing more of that innate connection to the divine feminine?
Um,
We
I
we
think nothing
yeah,
pops to
we've
mind right
definitely
off.
talked about like,
Yeah.
being present is super important. Like being able to be in that still space, I think is huge. Because I think we are in such a push energy in the society that we've been in for so long, that slowing down long enough to finally just be still, to where we do ground ourselves. We go out and put our feet in the grass. We let the sun or the moon, whatever time of day you're just in nature, and just breathing in and just being still, grounding your energy and just truly connecting. And that's when some of the greatest meditative moments come, is in
Hmm.
stillness and using nature as a conduit.
Yeah, absolutely. We live in a society that's like faster, faster, more, 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 and we've forgotten how to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And if you and you don't have to. Uh, there's a saying, and it's not coming to me right now, but you don't have to eat a whole apple in one bite. Take little bites.
Yes.
Stop and say, okay, I'm so used to getting up and running every morning and trying to get ready for work, or I come home from work and I'm just rushing. Find some place and give 5 minutes, 5 minutes that you just sit down and close your eyes and breathe and just do some slow breaths and just you can feel your whole body just relax. And it is in that space, just like you're saying, if you're craving this connection, you're listening to us, you're wanting to find this connection, we've found a lot of, that's where it is. It's in that stillness. It's not in when you're driving 75 miles an hour down the road and you're thinking ahead, I got to get there, I got to get there, I'm going to be late, whatever. It's in this stillness where most of this comes. So, yeah, slow down, give yourself that stillness, give yourself that time. Walk outside. I often, I mentioned earlier about kind of being clairaudient because I hear things that other people seem completely oblivious to, and yet they're right there. It's nothing special, it's just right there. Go outside and listen to the birds. Have you ever just really stopped and listened to the birds talking to each other, especially on a warm
Mm-hmm.
spring day, and there's just chirp, 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 chirp. They're so happy and they're doing their thing. Think back, have you really stopped and gone outside and done that lately?
Mm-hmm.
Those are beautiful moments. Those are the moments of connection. Those are the moments where you're going to find this.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the moments where your intuition is going to wake up, where you're going to realize things are going to pop into your mind that if you've been overthinking them. And as a 35-year software engineer with a gigantic left brain, yeah, I overthink things way too much. And so I've had to work at it to teach myself to slow down. But when I do, you can sometimes have a problem that you've been thinking about and is, "Arr." Go outside for 5 minutes and listen to the bird, and you'll be amazed how often an answer will pop into your mind while you're doing that. Like, oh, I didn't ever think of that. I could do this. I could do that. It's in that stillness.
Mm-hmm.
So find those times. And if whatever helps you, find time. If you like music helps you, put on music. And I'm not even going to tell you a genre, exactly what you need to do. Somebody could be listening to heavy metal, but to them, it's soothing. It's like, oh, I love this and whatever. Some people could be listening to Mozart, which is one of my favorites, actually. I love Mozart. Classical music, or there's what's called the New Age music, which is more um, drumming, flutes, nature sounds, that sort of thing. Very, very. quieting. It gives you the ability to relax and get into it. Use music as a break. Put a song on and go through that song and don't do anything else. Don't be thinking, okay, when this song ends, I'm going to do such and such.
Mm-hmm.
Try to get to that place where you can actually just be in that moment. It's like eating food. And do we just eat and swallow and yeah, that tasted good, but I'm eating to eat? Or do you put it in your mouth and you stop chewing for a minute and you say, what are the flavors that I'm tasting? What are the different spices in here? What are you realize that for so many years you've been putting it in and down it goes. You didn't even stop and realize, wow, I can actually taste this spice or that spice, or I really like this part of the flavor. Maybe this one not quite so much, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's that slowing down. And it can come in so many different ways. And these little tools, find a tool that works for you. We keep talking about find what's authentic for you and what
Mm-hmm.
works. Music may work for you, but you over there, nah, music not so much. So you go out and listen to the birds, or this, or that, or that. We can only throw out a few ideas. I'm inviting you to find out for yourself. Like, wow, I really like doing this, and I feel my body relaxing and slowing down when I do this. Go do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're going to rebalance yourself by finding that divine feminine input, the divine masculine input, becoming the divine feminine and divine masculine aren't running 90 miles an hour
Mm-hmm.
and thinking 10 steps ahead, they are calm and peaceful. Why do you think through history the divine feminine through all these cultures has been associated with nature, with the moon? They're calm, they're peaceful. Well, other than when there's a big storm in nature, but you know what I mean, generally. The moon is associated with the divine feminine. There are so many goddesses that are associated with the moon. Go out at night. Now, there's one of my personal favorites. Go out at night,
Mm-hmm.
just look up at the moon. Have you ever noticed all the details? The where there's cratering, where it's flat. Really look at it, where it's dark, where it's light. Spend some time looking. Go look at some stars. How many people run through their lives now, 90 miles an hour, don't even stop and look up? In the daytime, I look up constantly. I see birds flying that I never would have noticed. I otherwise. A particular thing is hawks. I have this big affinity for hawks, and they seem to come along to me. I had a hawk come down once while I was riding a bike, and it actually bumped its breast against the back of my head, fluttered its wings so it could get altitude, and off it went. It wasn't scratching, it wasn't attacking, and that was a message. I was slowed down enough to realize I just had a very special spiritual experience by this bird doing this. He wasn't afraid I was going to get near a nest or something. This was like, whoa. And a hawk happens to represent higher vision. And I was at that time taking my Reiki classes. So I was kind of learning to have a higher spiritual vision. And it's those kind of things. Slow down, look for those beautiful moments. The, the divine feminine, divine masculine, where they're found, is in those beautiful, slow moments.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think coming back to, yes, that connection that is outward, but also when we think about living on the earth, there's so many sacred traditions that talk about Mother Earth. And we are connected into the divine just being in the creative space of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Our bare feet on the grass, the
Mm-hmm.
oxygen that we breathe, just like you're saying. And so we really are connecting into the divine in such a powerful way. And it's not necessarily having to jump through hoops, dotting all these I's, checking all of these,
Mm-hmm.
boxes, crossing the T's. It really is in that space of stillness that we come back into more of that childlike state, that space of curiosity. It's going back to those parts of ourselves in our innate wisdom, the part of us that's always been there. And when we tune into that part, that's when the answers come. And I love that you shared those stories about the birds and the hawks and all of those times, because when we are still, that's when we have some of our greatest teaching moments.
Mm-hmm.
So these are beautiful tools, and this is definitely a podcast to go back and listen to again and again, because there's so many jewels in today's episode. So is there anything else you would like to share, Warren, before we close up for today?
I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah.
Just trust your intuition. Trust
Mm-hmm.
your intuition is really a, a direct connection to the divine. So learn to trust yourself and your intuition, and that's you got it made. It's you don't learn it all at once. You're a student, but if you start getting those little pieces and trusting, it will come.
Yes. Beautiful. Well, I truly appreciate you coming today. And as we've seen today, the divine feminine has always been present, from ancient goddess worship in early civilizations to the current resurgence of the feminine energy in our modern spiritual movements. Reconnecting with this energy is a powerful journey of healing, self-empowerment, and integration. And it really is about finding that balance within ourselves. And whether it's embracing the intuition, those nurturing parts of ourselves, the compassion, or fully standing in our power, it is in that sacred union, that sacred dance of balancing the masculine and feminine within. And so remember, you are a reflection of the divine feminine as well as the divine masculine. And by honoring this energy, you can experience deep transformation and harmony in your life. As we move forward in the Aquarian age, let's remember that goddess energy and allow that to really help us tune within and allow that wisdom and strength to guide us forward to live a more balanced, harmonious life and in a more balanced, harmonious world, because as we go inward, we also ripple outwardly. So
Mhm.
thank you again, Warren. Thank you to the audience for joining me today on the Discover Divinity Podcast, Reclaim Your Sovereign Soul. And until next time, may you walk with the sacred energy of the divine feminine. Have you found yourself navigating a dark night of the soul? Are you craving a deeper connection with the divine feminine? Are you ready to integrate the balanced union of the masculine and feminine within? Then let's get started on the journey towards wholeness to reclaim your sovereign soul. My name is Cynthia Clarke. Over the past several decades, I have undergone many dark nights of the soul. My healing journey has been a reclamation of my sovereign divinity. Whether you're just starting out on your self-healing journey or have been exploring techniques for many years, Discover Divinity offers an opportunity to uncover the new possibilities for discovering and reclaiming the innate wisdom within. It is time to discover the new possibilities. It is time to discover you.